Hello, and welcome to the TradingView Input Optimizer Chrome extension for Windows and Mac. This powerful tool can help you quickly analyze any strategy on TradingView and find the best value ranges for your input settings. This will save you the time and tedium of having to manually scour ranges of input combinations and could yield you better results on your trades. Let's get started. Firstly, we're going to assume you already know a thing or two about how to create your own strategies, as this goes beyond the scope of this tool. But if you're completely new to PineScript, then we recommend getting acquainted with it. You can find a great starting point by clicking the Pine Editor tab in the lower half of your screen and clicking the Settings button on the very right side of the window next to Publish Script. This drop-down menu contains documentation and reference to PineScript, as well as some nifty tutorials provided by Codify. If you are still needing individualized help, we are available for one-on-one consultations. So, to download the TradingView Input Optimizer, you simply go to TradingTools.Software/optimizer, and it'll bring you to this page. Up at the top, there's a big green button that will download the latest version. So we can click on download version 1.04 now, and you're going to have to extract this zip file that it downloads. So you can go ahead and drag that over to your desktop if you'd like, or however you unzip a file on your system. With Windows, you're going to have to right click this file and select extract here or extract to whatever folder you want to. On Mac, you can just double click it and it'll make the folder here with everything extracted into it. Now, because we've obfuscated our code, Google does not allow us to publish that on the Google Chrome Web Store. So we're going to have to run this in developer mode, and I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So you can go ahead and click the puzzle piece up in the top right corner, which is the extensions button, and you can go ahead and click manage extensions, or you can just go ahead and type in Chrome://extensions into your browser, and it'll bring you to the extension manager here. All we have to do is simply navigate over to the right side of the window, and you're going to see developer mode with a little toggle switch here. We're going to go ahead and click that to the on position. This will bring a couple buttons over here that you'll see, and we're going to want to go ahead and click load unpack, and you will go ahead and navigate to where you extracted that file to. So we'll go ahead and click the TradingView Input Optimizer V104 folder and click select, and as you can see, it adds it to our extensions, and we can go ahead and go up here and pin it, and it'll just be waiting for us up here. You can see that it installed the trial version of the Input Optimizer, which gives you 100 iterations per search max. If you do want to have access to more than 100 iterations, you're going to have to buy the license key over here for $199.99. You can pay with PayPal, Venmo, or debit credit card. Once you do that, give us 24 to 48 hours and we will email you a license key for your name. We do check this manually right now, and we will get that to you as soon as we can. So let's get started with an example strategy that we put together. This strategy is a variation of the typical way you might trade from using the MACD, and when optimized, it is better than buy and hold in most situations. If you would like to follow along with the code, this strategy will be published under the indicator section in TradingView, found with the name MACD TradingView Input Optimizer Strategy. For this example, we will be reviewing the strategy under the symbol XBTUSD on the 4-hour time frame. This strategy works by creating a buy signal when the MACD long value crosses over the cross point value, which in this case is 0, creating a buy signal, and a short signal when the MACD short value crosses under the cross point value, which in this case is also 0, closing the long. As a side note, you will know if the Input Optimizer is installed correctly, as it is responsible for this field highlighting green. This strategy allows you to test either only long moves, only short moves, or a combination of both long and short moves. We have also programmed in input fields that allow the strategy to use stop losses and take profits for the long and short positions. These settings can be found under the stop profit long and stop profit short groups located after the input short settings. For the purposes of this demonstration, we will be setting the values of the fast lengths and the short lengths respectively to 12 and 24. To make things simpler, for the moment we will be disabling shorts. If shorts aren't disabled, you can click this checkbox next to allow shorts to disable them. We will also be disabling stop losses and take profits. This will show data only for what long positions have been created. For reference, in the code, we have defined the MACD long value as the difference between the inputs fast long and slow long values, as we referenced right over here. Fast length long and slow length long. And similarly, we have also defined the MACD short value as the difference between the fast input short and the slow input short. Let's take a look at the current performance summary. This can be found if you are on the Strategy Tester tab and is located on the right side of the screen. Performance summary. Clicking Performance Summary will show the data reflecting the long positions on our graph. There are 3 columns, all, long, and short. Since we've disabled the shorts, the data in the all column will reflect only the data from the long column. So we can look at either of these to see our data. The input optimizer captures every different data point that is located in the performance summary. This will require that the performance summary section is displayed in order for the optimizer to properly function. If for some reason you try to use the optimizer without being on the performance summary area, the browser will throw an error reminding you to go to the performance summary area before you start the optimization. To access the TradingView Input Optimizer extension, in the top right corner of Chrome, you will see an icon resembling a puzzle piece. Clicking this icon will bring up your installed Google Chrome extensions. And I'll disable that just so it'll look like this. And you'll click on the puzzle piece and your extensions will be in here. And you can pin the TradingView Input Optimizer extension so it'll show outside of that. You might be wondering why the colors look a little different than what you're used to on the strategy. And that's because we have style settings for the lines and the histogram, which can be found in the settings style tab here. Signal short, MACD short, and histogram short are on right now. We're actually going to turn these back off so they look like normal, probably what you're used to. Click OK. We'll also get rid of these little marks I made earlier. Okay. So what do we want to do next? Let's take a look at some of these profit earnings for the data that we have. Right now on the current settings, we can see the net profit is 483,584. Normally when you're testing a strategy, you'll be twiddling with these inputs, checking to see which ones yield the best results. This is tedious to do manually, so this is where the beauty of the input optimizer will come in. Instead of doing this one by one, having to write down the data into an Excel sheet or on paper or whatever you do, this is going to just be a very tedious, time-consuming process, which may drive you crazy. So this is why we've made this tool. So let's see the awesomeness of the TradingView Input Optimizer in action. The idea here is we're going to check fast length long versus the slow length long, and we're going to check a range of values that we're going to dictate by the settings over here. So I want to test between 6 and 40, I think would be a good value ranges to see what results we're going to get. So in order to do this, there is a sequence of events that have to happen in order for this optimizer to work properly. First things first, you're going to want to have your settings tab open. The inputs that you want to manipulate, you'll have to click into the field and make sure that the input field turns green. This is how we know the input optimizer is working correctly. If it's not working correctly, this will not show green. Once you've clicked inside there, you'll notice the field itself has a blue border around it too, showing that it's the currently selected field. Next, you can click on the Chrome extension icon for the TradingView optimizer, and we'll want to click the input 1 range here, and this is where you'll put your values in. So I want to test from 6 to 40, and steps are how much it's going to step the value by. So in this case, it'll go 6, 7, 8, 9. You can do numbers below 1. You can do numbers, you can do 2, you can whatever you want. So I have 6 to 40 with a step of 1. Once I click set input 1, you'll notice that the input actually turned blue. This is the desired behavior. We know that the input 1 is set now. And then we're going to actually be testing 2 values against each other. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the second input, and then we're going to make sure that turns green again and has the border. And we'll click back into the extension and be able to set our values for the second input, which I'm going to also do from 6 to 40 with a step of 1. And then we're going to click set input 2. After we do this, we'll notice both of the fields that we're testing on are both blue, which is correct. And it'll give you an estimate of how many iterations that's going to take in order to do. And an iteration is the same thing as me clicking up or down on one of the inputs. Once all that is set, we can click start optimization, and the optimizer is going to go ahead and do its job. We're going to speed this up so it won't take too much of your time watching. So here we have the TradingView Input Optimization Results Report, and this report has every data point that was in the Performance Summary tab. You can see every data point in the column controls area right here, and they're all checked right now by default. Below that, we have a table with all the tabular data for every data point, and below that, we're going to have some heat map access controls and the heat map generation button, which I'll get into in a second. First of all, with this table, everything is organized in alphabetical order from the column controls, and there are some cool features here, such as you can click any one of these drop-down boxes and you can either hide columns, or you can move any column to the front or back quickly, or just drag any column to any position that you want and it'll move there. So that'll make viewing certain data points really easy. Currently, we're seeing every data point in the Performance Summary tab all at once. We don't necessarily want to see every data point, so I'm going to go ahead and clear all so we can just pull in the data points that we want to look at. We'll start with our 2 inputs, slow length long and fast length long. And I'm going to go ahead and select
a couple inputs that I think are also important. Ratio average win-loss, buy and hold return, max drawdown percentage all, Sharpe ratio, Sortino ratio, net profit percent all, buy and hold return percentage all, percent profitable all, profit factor all. That should be good. Now we can organize the table data to be a little bit more easy to read. I'm going to go ahead and use some of the features of the columns to move things around. So I'm going to move slow length long next to fast length long, max drawdown all. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the back. So it'll go over here. Buy and hold return all. Actually, we're going to go ahead and just hide this column because all we care about is the percentage for the buy and hold return. Buy and hold return next to the net profit all. And that should be pretty good. Now we have all our data tabularized in this table here, and we can sort by any column. So for example, we can see the highest net profit percentage. That's the lowest and then highest. So this means that a fast length long of 7 and a slow length long of 8 for our inputs created a net profit for the strategy of 135,742 versus the buy and hold for that same time was only 31,518%. That looks really good, but this can be misleading. So this is why we're going to go ahead and look at the next feature of the report, which is the heat map. Before we generate the heat map, I'd like to go over a couple of the heat map axis options so we understand what we're doing here. First of all, there are 3 axes, an X, a Y, and a Z axis. Although the heat map is going to be displayed as a 1-dimensional or 2-dimensional graph, depending on how many axes you're actually checking against. An important feature for convenience is filter XYZ options by column controls. What this will do is this will only let you select column controls that you have already checked up above as the options for each axis. If we actually uncheck this, you can see that every single option, every single data point is available, and that can be a little bit overwhelming. So just for convenience sake, we'll go ahead and keep that checked, which should be on by default, and we'll just check on some of the columns that we want to check against. In this case, we're going to check fast length long as our X axis against the slow length long as our Y axis, and Z is going to be the data that we're going to check in relation to the X and Y axis. For example, if we return back to the table here, before I was using the net profit percentage all as an example, 135,742. This corresponds to as if the X axis is 7 for the fast length and the Y axis is 8 for the slow length. This will produce a Z value of 135,742 if we're checking net profit. And if we're checking percent profitable, that'll show 40.45%, etc. So we want to check the net profit percent all for the Z axis right now. And once those are all set, next thing we're going to check for are the color range values. So what this does is this will give you the minimum and maximum values for what colors they're going to display on the heat map. And if you don't know what ranges to put in here, we suggest that we use the color range from the Z axis. So what this will do, when this is checked, instead of having to manually put in values for these 2 inputs, for net profit, if we suggest the color range from the Z axis, and I have to actually refresh this real quick, we're going to see that it has automatically put in 2 values here, the low and the high. And these correspond to the net profit percent all's high value and the low value. You can see that right there. So with that all set, we can click generate heat map, and we'll scroll down to the area where the heat map is generated. As we can see, the heat map shows a lot of color ranges ranging from some greens to whites and a lot of red. Let's take a look at the full screen mode of this heat map in order to see things better. You can do that by going over to the right hand side of the heat map area where there's the 3 dashes and click it, and you can see it'll say view in full screen. Go ahead and do that. That way it's a little easier to see this data here. Now we'll notice a couple things interesting about this data. First of all, that the highest value is located near all of these values here, which happen to be where the fast length long and the slow length long are the same. What this actually means is no trades have ever happened when the fast length long and the slow length long were the same value. This is creating a staircase effect of this ocean of red where all the values just don't make sense from a trade standpoint. So we want to avoid areas like this. This is the worst it could be. And we're looking at areas that are more green, or even white is a neutral color. So we want to stay as green as possible for this. We're also using the default values for the color range. So we want to actually make that a little bit more relevant to what we're doing here. So if we notice, the best buy and hold return percent is going to be 34,172. And right now there is a little bug where this isn't showing at the top on the sort. We're going to have that patched before too soon. Don't worry about that. This won't be an issue in the future. Just know that 34,172 is the best buy and hold return percent. So if we have that in mind, if we want to see what actually performed better than the buy and hold, all we have to do is put that into the bad color minimum value, which is going to be right here, 34,172. We're going to go ahead and regenerate the heat map. And this is making it look pretty bad. Not all of these red colors are actually bad. What we want to actually do is have a range for what good actually means. Now, in this case, 135,000% is an outlier. Nothing is going to perform as well as this. So what we'll want to do is, for example, let's just say we want to find things that are maybe twice as good as what the buy and hold was. So we can just go ahead and put a value roughly twice as good as what the buy and hold value was. So I'm going to put 68,000 as the value. Let's go ahead and regenerate that heat map, and we'll notice that the colors are a lot more concentrated. So let's go ahead and reopen this in full screen. And by the way, if you need to exit the full screen at any time, you can press the escape button, or you can click the menu again and hit exit from full screen. So we'll go back into that. And now what we're seeing is data that shows that this may not be as reliable and as solid as it seems. Even though it did yield the best results for net profit, there are a lot of bad values that are too close for my comfort in order for there to be a safe strategy here. Crunching the numbers, we've come up with a safer value of around 13 and 19 for the fast and slow respectively. As we can see right here, it's not as impressive from a net profit standpoint, but it's better than buy and hold, and it's also a lot safer. As we can see, we can be off a couple of values and still be way above what the buy and hold returned. And even some of these red squares right here are not terrible. This is actually still better than buy and hold, even though it's showing up red. So everything is relative to that. This is what makes the heat graph so useful. We can see things in the heat graph we would normally not be able to see very easily or at all in the tabular data alone. So that makes it a very useful tool to have at your disposal. Now, let's go back to the other tab, and we'll go ahead and plug in those values of 13 and 19 for fast length long and slow length long. Using that same strategy, we've also determined that the best values for fast length short and slow length short are going to be 11 and 20. And we're going to go ahead and allow shorts. I'll go ahead and put on 11 and 20 as these values. These are the optimized values. And we're going to go ahead also and go over to the style tab and turn on histogram short, MACD short, and signal short again so we can see everything clearly. So by using these optimized values, we can take a look and see net profit is significantly better than buy and hold. 310,500% versus 6,273%. From our research, we've determined that there is no value for stop loss long or take profit long that actually yields a better result than you're currently seeing right now, and we'll show you why. We're going to go ahead and run another optimizer sequence with stop loss values ranging from 0.1 all the way to 20, and we'll show you the tabular data from that.
And a word of advice, we are not financial advisors, and we are just using strategies that we've been experimenting with. So use these at your own risk. Come up with your own strategies, ones that may be better than this.
Looking back at the optimization results, we can see that our previous net profit was 310,533. If we go ahead and sort, we notice that this is still the top net profit percentage. Stop loss didn't actually affect this in a positive way. In fact, you can see with different values, it actually hurt the net profit a lot. So we'll notice that when the stop loss long gets to 18.7% and above, it doesn't really affect the net profit anymore than it did before. And these two values for net profit between 18.6% and 18.7% are wildly different. So this isn't very reliable. It can cause wildly different results and most likely will end up hurting the strategy. So we're going to go ahead and not use stop loss. Again, this is not financial advice, but what we have figured out that works is instead of using stop loss long, we're going to use stop loss and take profit on the shorts with the similar range value. So we're going to go and set this from 0.5, 20, and we're going to also step in 0.5 increments. And for second input, we'll go ahead and do similar values here, 0.5 to 20 in the step of 0.5, and we'll set those two, and then we'll start optimization. So taking a look at the data here, we can see that the highest buy and hold return value is 6,733%. And by contrast, the lowest net profit value we have is 20,677%. Quite a big difference there. The highest net profit value percent we have is 2,000,000%. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that on the heat map. So if we take a look here, we can see that as the values go from smaller numbers to higher numbers in this range here, that everything looks better as we go up towards 20. This is where our highest net profit values are. As we can see, the net profit gets much better as we go towards 20 on both the stop loss percent short and the take profit percent short. All of these ranges are really good values. And if you notice, just because this graph is showing a lot of results that have red here, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. In fact, all of these values have done significantly better than buy and hold. So what we can actually do is I'm going to go ahead and exit full screen, and I'm going to go down to heat map color controls. And if if you've noticed right here, our max value is the highest net profit value. So if we want to make this a little bit more realistic, we can say, okay, maybe we don't want to see data showing from the lowest to the absolute highest, but you have to decide what is going to be your goals here for net profit percentage. So in this example, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just cut that value in half. So we'll say anything greater than 1,000,000% is going to show green, and anything less than the minimum is still going to be red. So if we regenerate that heat map, we can see, I'm going to go ahead and full screen this again. We can see a little bit better how the heat map shows visually what is good and what is bad as far as what your goals are concerned. So this really makes it easy to visualize data quickly and makes you able to see zones of good data, which is going to be very important for your strategies and optimizing them fully. All right, next, let's take a look at profit factor. Now, profit factor may be another metric you're interested in. So we'll go ahead and select profit factor for our Z-axis, and it'll auto-suggest the ranges from the lowest to the highest, and go ahead and regenerate that heat map. It does provide a much different visual. So we'll go ahead and full screen that again. And we can see here that actually the highest profit factors happen to be on these lower numbers for the take profit percentage short, which means that on average, the trades actually were more profitable, but that doesn't actually correlate to it being a higher net profit overall. So that's something you have to take into consideration. The highest net profit values actually didn't have the best profit factors, but they were overall better for the strategy. Again, this is just another example of you have to decide what metrics are important to you. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Sortino ratio. And the Sortino ratio is a ratio of risk to reward. When you're looking at a trade, you're going to get a Sortino value out of that. And what that actually means is how profitable this trade was versus how much risk the trade took on. And any value above 2 is generally an ideal value for a Sortino ratio. So we can see here that as we got towards the highest net profit, that the Sortino ratios were all well above 2, which is in line with the highest net profits. Generally, these had less risk involved versus the reward that they gave. And there was more risk versus reward here. And that's probably generally due to it just being a less net profit overall. But these Sortino ratios are all decent, especially the ones over here are amazing. We're going to go ahead and take a look at max drawdown last. And max drawdown is an example of where you may want to use a reverse color to visualize this data properly, because a higher value is actually going to be more red. So we want the colors to actually be reversed here. We can see that once we reverse the colors here, I'm going to go ahead and full screen it one more time. And we can notice that now, since the colors are inverted, this is actually showing correct visual data. We can see here that a red value for max drawdown, let's see this one, for example, 46.84% max drawdown. Green value will actually have 30%. So the lower it is on this visual, the greener it's going to be. So sometimes you're going to need that reverse color function here. So we have that built into the graph. And yeah, so that makes it really quick and easy to visualize your data to get the best results possible in your strategies. This tool can yield some pretty amazing results if you optimize your strategy correctly. As we can see here, we started with $1,000 initial capital, and through all these trades, it has ended up becoming over $20 million with this strategy. Again, this is not financial advice, but this is just an interesting result from an experiment of optimization on a strategy. If you have any further questions, we can be contacted at support@TradingTools.Software, and we hope you enjoy this wonderful tool.